Hey pals, my name is Blaine, and you're watching Blaine's World of Reviews. Today, we're moving on with my series of Spider-Man reviews of all the live-action Spider-Man films leading up to Brand New Day. And so today, we're going to be talking about The Amazing Spider-Man 2, again starring Andrew Garfield. So right now, I'm in the sort of the middle of the fight here, and we're on the Andrew Garfield movies. But if you'd like to go back and watch my thoughts on the other films before this, those are available on my channel, as well as my out of theater reaction to Spider-Man Brand New Day if you're wanting to see my thoughts on the new movie, spoiler free. So for these ones, I do spoilers for these older movies. And then eventually, by the time we get to the end of this series, I'm going to do a full spoiler review on Spider-Man Brand New Day once I've been able to fully collect my thoughts on it. But like I said, today we're continuing on with the Andrew Garfield movies. Only two of these, so we're on the second and last one. So we're going to be doing The Amazing Spider-Man 2. All right, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This is the one I'm sure some people have been waiting for. If you want to see me dislike a movie or have something to rip into, this is the one that everybody rips into. This is the one that people have the most issues with. So it would only make sense that I would feel the same. But I kind of like this movie. Get me wrong, this is definitely my least favorite of the live action Spider-Man movies. It has so many problems that are just too much to ignore. The way I've described this movie to people in the past is, sometimes people will say that thing wasn't half bad. This movie is exactly half bad. Like, I think it is 50-50 in terms of great and some of the most incredible things they've ever done in a Spider-Man movie, and then some of the stupidest, weirdest decisions that they've ever made in a Spider-Man movie. So for this one, I'm going to kind of do this review a little bit differently. I'm not going to just go through the plot and sort of talk about my favorite and least favorite things as they go along. I'm going to specifically start going to give you all of my highlights of this movie. Started off nice, and then towards the back half of this video, I'm going to dig into the many issues that I have with it. But I figured it'd be nice to get the good things out of the way, because I think that people usually, when they go into this movie, they hyper focus on the negatives, and some of the really, really good stuff that happens in this movie gets lost along the way. And I know that I have myself listed as a film critic on my pages, but I really like to think of myself more as like a film appreciator. It takes a lot for me to really hate and dislike a film, and if I do, I just don't watch it again and don't really ever think about it. So with this one, yes, I have a lot of issues with it, but I've watched it enough times now to where there is stuff that I know that I just love about it. And so let's get into some of those first, and then we will get into the heap of shit that this movie also delivers. Let's start off with the fun stuff, though. You can't talk about the positives of this movie without talking about the romance and the chemistry, again, between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone as Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy. It feels like their chemistry got turned up to an 11 in between these movies. It feels like the director and everybody involved was just like, hey, why don't you two just like kind of riff and be cute together, and we're just going to film it, and we'll just put that in the movie. Because I mean, this all feels very natural. It almost feels like you're watching that one couple that's too touchy and kind of like so in love that it grosses you out a little bit, but in the best way possible, like you're happy for them. But it really does feel like a real lived-in relationship between the two, and there is a good amount also of like back and forth between them as far as like some like strain in the relationship, without it feeling like how it did in the Raimi movies of like feeling that they're constantly at odds. Their struggles in this relationship feel very real and very natural. Peter's dealing with the PTSD of the loss of Gwen's dad and his final wish to Peter to be not around Gwen anymore. So like that is a really, really good idea for why Peter is having trouble with committing to this relationship. I like that he didn't just go full force right back into being with her. At the end of the last movie, that was kind of my critique, was like, I didn't love the way he just kind of said, screw what that guy had to say, and I'm just going to go for it. I still think it's a bad decision that he's with her at all, but I understand why he is that way. I mean, if you look at it, he's supposed to be 18 in this movie. He definitely doesn't look 18. But everyone here is supposed to be pretty young. So it makes sense that this is his sort of decision making. But I really like their relationship. They're very cute together. They really spend time to let you watch these two just be the sweetest couple, and it gets you. I don't want to say ready, but it definitely gets you emotionally invested for when they pull the rug out from under you at the end of the movie, which we'll get to here in a second. A big improvement over the last movie and this one is the suit. This is the best live action Spider-Man suit we've ever gotten. I really like the new Brand New Day suit, and it might have a little bit more time to grow on me and become my favorite. But when I look at the big eyes on this suit and the way the colors pop and just the way it moves on screen, this to me still is just the perfect Spider-Man suit. Like I don't know what the costume designer between the first and second movie was like thinking, like what direction was given to them, but they really took it. Like it really is a phenomenal costume. And I liked the one in the last movie. It felt a little bit more homemade. I wasn't a big fan of like the sunglasses lenses, like the yellow kind of look to them. I felt like the colors were a little muted and the textures were a little off. They took everything that I had complaints about in the last one and completely overhauled it into a perfect Spider-Man costume that looks great in every moment that it's on screen. Like there's not a moment in this movie where this suit looks bad from any angle. And so I adore this suit. I adore this costume, and it's one of the best superhero suits, not just for Spider-Man, but for any superhero in general. It just looks so good. So yeah, that's definitely a huge bonus for this movie. A huge positive for this movie is the visual effects and the action scenes. If you've seen like a Spider-Man edit on TikTok where somebody like bunches together a bunch of cool action scenes, the coolest looking ones or the ones that are used the most often are the ones from this movie. Which I think again speaks to the fact that this movie, while it might be the worst Spider-Man movie, it's still a damn good time. Like it has some of the coolest superhero action I've ever seen. The swinging feels perfect. It feels like what it would be like to watch Spider-Man swing through the city. There's so many cool different angles that they try out that make you feel sometimes like you're on the ground watching Spider-Man go by, and other times it feels like you're in the first person. You're right with him swinging through the city. Like it's so cool what they're able to do. Like the filmmaking for the action is top notch. Like the best of any Spider-Man movie. I'd say the only one that comes close is Brand New Day, which we'll get to a little bit later. Obviously, I love the action in the Raimi movies as well, but there's something about the way that Andrew's Spider-Man moves, the way that the camera works with him, and this movie in particular, it just feels so perfectly Spider-Man. Like it's just so good. So yeah, visual effects in this movie top notch. The overall action vibe, colors, everything about the cinematography looks great. And it all comes together for just like a beautiful comic book film. Like I really, really think that this movie has some of the most gorgeous action and gorgeous cinematography of any superhero movie we've ever gotten. This might be my least favorite Spider-Man movie, but it has probably my favorite Spider-Man scene of any of these movies. It's not a big action scene. It's not like a big, emotional moment between the two lead, romance partners in the movie or anything like that. It's this little scene. It's during a montage of Spider-Man kind of just helping the city out after him and Gwen have broken up, and him just sort of learning how to just be Spider-Man on his own and trying to just, take care of the city and not worry about what he's lost. And there's a little scene where there's this little boy being picked on by some school bullies, and they break his science project, and Spider-Man just swoops down. He doesn't like act like he's gonna beat up those kids or anything like that. He just stands there. They know that he's there to protect the boy, and they run off. And then he repairs the kid's windmill, his science project, and walks him home. And there's no scene in any other Spider-Man movie that feels more Spider-Man to me. Like it feels like watching Peter Parker get to heal his younger self. and be the friend that he probably needed at that age and be the hero, the support that he needed when he was younger. There's so much I could say about this one little scene and the way that it comes back later in the movie, which I'll touch on in a second. But like, I just adore this moment. I think that it is the most Spider-Man any of these actors has ever felt, any of these moments has ever felt. Like, it just feels so perfectly like it encapsulates what Spider-Man is to me as a character, as someone who defends the weak, and is a friend. He's not just, avenging angel, or like a protector in the way, where he's going to beat people up. He's also just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's there to support people who need him, and to be a good person, even if that doesn't mean he's webbing people up and doing crazy stuff. He just helped this little boy out who needed a friend. There's also a really beautiful scene in the midway point of this movie between Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker and Sally Field as Aunt May, where Peter, the plot that's around it, I'm not a huge fan of. Like, he's still trying to figure out stuff about his dad, and we'll get into that later. But I love the moment with Aunt May, because you get this scene where she basically says, like, "You're my boy. Like, I don't care that I'm not your super cool, I'm not a science person, like I'm not like your dad was, but I was there to hold you at night when you were scared. I was there to take care of you. You're my son. You're my boy." And I love that scene. It's one of those scenes, again, feels so perfectly ripped out of a comic book. Just like the scene I was talking about earlier, but with him saving that young boy, this one feels like the perfect representation of Peter Parker and Aunt May's relationship, and the sort of motherly figure she is for him. She's not just his aunt. She's the person who's been there for him more than anybody else and supports him no matter what, and sees the good in him even when he's not capable of seeing it in himself. So I love this scene. And their relationship over the movie, I feel like, gets more developed in this one as well. You get some cute moments between them. You also get some funny ones, and then some really, really emotionally impactful ones. So I love these two actors' chemistry. I've mentioned it in the last one. You get more of it here. And this scene just really is another one of those gut punch Spider-Man scenes where you just feel the history and the love between these two characters in a way that feels so lived in, and just, so emotionally resonant. Like, every time I see this scene, it's hard for me not to tear up, because like it really is just very impactful for me. But of course, you can't talk about emotionally impactful moments in this movie without talking about the death of Gwen Stacy. This scene hits like a truck. Like, it hurts so much, because if you're a comic book fan, you know it's coming. Even when I saw this when I was 14, I think is how old I was when I saw this the first time, I knew what was going to happen. I knew exactly how this movie was going to end, and I still was not ready for the moment where Peter tries to save her from the shitty Green Goblin in this movie. We'll get to that later. But Peter tries to save her, and the web comes out, and there's that beautiful moment. I've seen some people clown on it, but I like it a lot, where the web kind of looks like a little hand reaching out to grab her. And then she, it stops her from falling, but you can tell like she's hit the ground, her back snaps, like, and she's gone. And it's just so soul shattering. Like, of any emotional movement, like more than any Uncle Ben death, more than the Sandman stuff in Spider-Man 3, even more than the little kid moment I talked about and the Aunt May stuff in this one. Like, this is the performance by Andrew Garfield, but also Emma Stone and everything leading up to that scene. They are just so well casted, and their chemistry is so good throughout this movie. So when she dies, it feels so devastating. I remember being a teenager, seeing this in the theater for the first time, and wanting to bawl my eyes out, especially from Andrew Garfield's performance. The denial you watch him go through, the pain that you see on sorry, try not to get emotional right now. The pain you see on his face, losing the person he loves most in this world, especially after he was warned that this is what is going to happen if you get too close to her. And he's been worried about this whole movie. And then it does happen. Like, what he's been fearing this entire time happens to him. And it doesn't stop there because then you watch him. I call this his kind of Twilight moment. If you've ever seen the Twilight movies, there's the New Moon one where, long story short, Edward leaves Bella and they go around her in like a revolving shot where you see the seasons pass her as a way of showing like her depression going through time. They do a very similar thing here where you see Peter at Gwen's grave over multiple seasons. He's given up being Spider-Man essentially, and he's just grieving and he has lost everything that's important to him. It is just like the biggest emotional gut punch that has happened in any of these movies ever. Like in the movies that happen after this have nothing that come close to this, and neither did the movies before it. Like it's just devastating. And while the ending of the movie is devastating, there is a beautiful scene that sort of wraps everything back together. There's that kid I talked about earlier in the movie who he helped with his science project. The rhino who sucks in this movie, but we'll talk about that. The rhino's attacking town, and Spider-Man hasn't been seen in months because Peter's been grieving and he's been like, sort of on his own, dealing with the loss of Gwen. And there's an attack happening, and that little boy is in the crowd of people who are watching this happen. And he's in a little Spider-Man costume, and he runs out into the middle of this firefight between the cops and the rhino, and he tries to step in for Spider-Man. And this is another one of those moments that I talk about that I love so much in Spider-Man movies and media in general, where Spider-Man does a good thing for somebody and he gets to see it get paid forward. It's just such a beautiful moment to watch this kid, put his life on the line. Like it's crazy, like it's a very dangerous thing, but it's so beautiful to watch. It's a really emotionally impactful scene, especially for Peter, who has lost everything, to see that he is still capable of putting good out into the world, and that being Spider-Man as a benefit. It has an effect on the world that can be positive, despite what it's done to him and done to his life, that there's still a reason to be a hero. And also, he gets to see Gwen's speech from graduation, where she talks about being good, and being a force for good in the world, and for not giving up when dark days come. All of that sort of happens at the same time, and it's just a beautiful way to wrap up the movie and bring everything full circle and not leave the movie on a completely depressing note. And then I love the line once he does show up and he's like, he talks to the kid and he goes, "Hey, Spider-Man." Like he just calls the kid Spider-Man. He's like, why don't you go take care of your mom? I appreciate you stepping in for me. Just so Spider-Man. Like I cannot hate this movie because there are moments like this in the movie that understand Spider-Man more than any of the other films or any of the other like animated shows or anything like that have ever been able to capture. All right, now the part you've been waiting for. I've gushed about the things that I enjoyed. Let's talk about the issues with this movie. Um, it feels that Sony didn't learn their lesson from trying to force three villains into Spider-Man 3. Because in this movie, we get Paul Giamatti as the Rhino, who is ridiculous. I don't know if Paul Giamatti just decided he was going to act like that, or if they just told him go full extra Russian tracksuit mafia, like crazy and over the top. And I love Paul Giamatti, so I know it can't just be him. It had to have been whatever the vision was for that character. He's horrible in this movie. Jamie Foxx as Electro, who I guess is like the main villain of the movie, is just a carbon copy of like Jim Carrey as the Riddler or Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. One of those characters who starts off as like a nerd, kind of even stalkery character who loves the hero. And then something bad happens to them and they go full evil. And Jamie Foxx's Electro is kind of the worst version of that too, because he doesn't even feel believable when he changes to being bad. Like there's one scene and he's just kind of like, "You didn't even remember my name, Spider-Man. Like I thought we were friends." And then he just goes full evil, like genocidal, like crazy. Like he wants to kill everybody in New York and kill Spider-Man. Like his shift, bizarre, very, very weird. And then you also have who, in my opinion, is the worst part of the movie. Stop me if you've heard this before. Harry Osborn, I don't know what it is with these movies. I didn't mind him in Spider-Man 3, but like even then, like he wasn't my favorite part of that movie. I feel like they don't know how to write Harry Osborn as a character, and this is the worst version of this character. Uh, Dane DeHaan, I've seen him in some stuff that I've liked him in, but I just felt that he was really miscast for this. Like I don't feel his chemistry with Peter at all. And when you do see hints of it, like it doesn't feel real. And maybe it's because he wasn't in the last movie at all and he was never mentioned. And so like it feels kind of like a retcon that he's here now and that these two have apparently been friends since they were kids and then kind of lost, connection whenever Harry got sent to boarding school or whatever. Regardless, it just feels forced. I don't really like Dane DeHaan's performance as the character, whether it's Harry or as the Green Goblin. People call this the face herpes Green Goblin. The design is just awful. I hate the design of this character. I don't like the suit for Electro either. The design for Rhino looks bad, but this is my least favorite of the designs. He looks weird. His overall just acting as the character doesn't feel I appreciate what they tried to do by making him more like goblin-y, like in the face and not doing the whole Power Ranger or whatever they called it, armor from the original one. Um, but it doesn't feel like a good substitute. And again, like he's having to pick up not just as like the sort of performance of James Franco in the previous movies, but he's fully the Green Goblin in this. Like he's supposed to not just be like the Harry Osborn new Goblin of the Raimi trilogy, where he's kind of just like a regular dude with superpowers. He's supposed to be the laughy, cackly Goblin of a Willem Dafoe. And he doesn't pull that off either. He's just weird. He just feels the whole movie feels kind of greasy, like kind of gross and just off-putting and not in a way that's fun. Like I'm not a fan of any of the villains in this movie. But even with the issues with the villains, the biggest issue of this movie is their continued interest in Peter Parker's mom and dad. This movie opens with what feels like a Jason Bourne action scene on an airplane where you see Peter's parents die, and then they kind of over the movie have Peter trying to do like one of those big I call it the Charlie Day boards from what is that show Community or I've never actually seen the show but the meme is sort of everywhere. I'll put a picture of it on screen, but he's doing one of those string boards trying to figure out what his dad was all about, and the plot just goes bananas. Like it just goes in the most unbelievable direction of like Peter throws a calculator against the wall, and it turns out that this calculator had some subway tokens, and those subway tokens work in this abandoned subway that was used by Theodore Roosevelt to hide his Parkinson's or whatever. And if you put those tokens in this token machine down there or whatever, a big subway train comes up out of the ground and it has all of Peter Parker's dad's research in it. And you find out that Peter Parker's dad stole the spider formula and basically set it to where only someone of his bloodline could be Spider-Man or like could benefit from the spider gene or whatever. And that Oscorp tried to cover it up and make him look like a traitor to the country. Like there's all this random shit that happens in this part of the movie, and it feels so forced, so convoluted, and so unnecessary. Like it just none of this works. None of this works for the story. It doesn't feel like it moves anything forward that much. All it really tells you is that this version of Peter Parker is the only person in the world that could have been Spider-Man. And I don't really like that. Like I prefer it when the idea of Spider-Man is like anybody could have been bitten by that spider and it's lucky that it was Peter Parker. I prefer that over the fact that he was like born to be Spider-Man or destined because only he could have received this power. And if he didn't receive, or if someone else got it, they would turn him like how Harry turns into the Green Goblin by taking the spider venom in this movie. Like all of that just feels so weird, so forced, so unnecessary. And it really just makes the plot convoluted. And I see why this is like such a major sticking point for people because it's just so dumb. It's not the fun kind of comic booky kind of dumb. It's just dumb in a way that feels forced and frustrating. Like it's like there's so much more you could have done with any one of these villains, or giving some more scenes of Peter and Gwen or Peter and Aunt May. But instead, we spent time on Peter's dead dad. And all we really learned is that the spiders were made for Peter, essentially. I don't understand. Like, it's such a weird decision. And a lot of the writing in this movie just feels overly convenient. Like, Norman Osborn dies at the beginning of the movie of this made up disease that he calls the Osborn curse. And then he tells Harry, "Oh, it started around your age. Are you getting the trimmers yet?" or whatever. Norman looks like he died at a relatively old age. Like, he looks like he's maybe in his mid late 60s, early 70s. And they make it seem like, and it appears to be, that Harry is dying a lot sooner. Like, Norman was able to live an entire life, essentially. Like, I'm not saying it was a good one, but it's weird to me that they seem like they fast tracked Harry's whole degradation in his health. Like, he's just like, one moment he's pretty healthy, and then all of a sudden he's just straight on to like, "Oh, I'm gonna die next week," essentially. Like, it's so
You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
weird. Like, the writing choices in this, and I mentioned it earlier, Electro, he goes from being like a relatively sweet dude who just is like a little obsessive about Spider-Man, but also just like quiet and nerdy. And then all of a sudden he's just fully like, "I'm gonna take all of the power from the city and kill Spider-Man," and all of this. Like, there's just the writing just feels like it exists just as a means to get the characters where they wanted them to be, and not as a genuine like story. Like, it doesn't feel like any of this feels like earned or feels like it was plotted out beforehand. It feels very much like they were just kind of like, "All right, and now he's mad for some reason." Like, that's pretty much it. And so it bogs down the whole movie whenever it doesn't even feel like the characters are being genuine, or acting in a way that makes sense. And the things that are happening to them feel like they have no rules behind them either. Like, everything just feels kind of bizarre, and kind of just like haphazardly thrown together. I think a big part of the reason that this movie feels so thrown together is you can tell that this whole movie was intentionally a setup for like a Sinister Six type movie. And if you don't know who the Sinister Six are, it's like six of Batman, Spider-Man's greatest villains, who team together to kill Spider-Man. And so it seems like they finally wanted to do that type of movie. And, so there's all these Easter egg moments of, "Oh, there's Doc Ock's arms, and there's Vulture's wings, and there's all this stuff." And so there's so much time devoted to like doing setup that they don't save enough time to like make any one of the 100 plots going on in this movie actually worthwhile, except for the one between Gwen and Peter. And that one only feels as good as it does because of the chemistry between those two. So, like, I feel like the moments that were actually written don't actually like lead to satisfying conclusions because there's so much going on. Like, this movie is just so jam packed, and so it makes it really hard to care about some of these. And also, not all the acting across the board is great either. I already talked about Dane DeHaan as Harry. Weird performance for him, but also Jamie Foxx, he's all right. Like, it's just, I don't really feel like the Max Dillon character is that believable, but maybe it's because I just see Jamie Foxx as usually playing like a cool kind of badass type of character. Um, yeah, just everybody feels off who isn't Andrew Garfield or Sally Fields or Emma Stone. Like, those are the three ones really giving it their all. Everybody else in this movie just feels kind of awkward and off, in a way that just makes this movie feel kind of corny in a bad way, not in like the endearing way, but like "Oh, this didn't feel very well thought out" type of way. So yeah, my main negatives for this movie are just how convoluted it feels, how the story just feels so convenient, and then also just how bloated it is with the amount of characters and plot lines going on. You've also got stuff going on with Gwen wanting to go to Oxford, so she's going to go to the UK. Peter's dealing with all of his, dad's stuff, while also he was working for the Daily Bugle, but you don't really see him working with them directly. Like there's just so much stuff going on in this movie, and it felt like they didn't want to commit to one specific thing, and it just ends in a way where you're like, okay, that was so much of so many different things that it ended up feeling like nothing. And so, yeah, it's frustrating because there is so much good, but there's also just so much bad in this movie as well. So, yeah, like I said, my overall thoughts with this movie is it's half bad. It is literally half bad. It is a 50-50 experience. Like it's so crazy to me that it can have some of the highest highs and lowest lows in one movie. However, I do think that the highs are high enough to make this movie still rewatchable. It's not one that I would say that I enjoy rewatching every time that I do it. And there are a lot of times where, like during the Peter's dad backstory moments, I tend to zone out and just kind of like wait for those scenes to be over. But the action scenes, the overall score of the movie as well, the music, the visual effects, the cinematography, there's enough good happening in this movie to make it rewatchable and entertaining, but it's definitely the weakest of any Spider-Man movie. So if you were to ask me my rating on it, I would say this one probably lands at a 5 out of 10, right there in the middle. You know, like I said, half good, half bad. It's disappointing that that's, you know, the where it ends up, considering that there is so much good in it. But like I said, it is still entertaining, and the worst version of a Spider-Man movie so far is still better than a lot of like the mid versions of like a, you know, your run of the mill Marvel movie that doesn't really have anything going on in it. So I do think that this is still a cut above just like a boring superhero movie. It's definitely not boring. Like I said, huge mixed bag of a movie, but still entertaining. If you guys haven't watched it in a while, or if it's going to be your first time watching it and you just have never gotten around to it, I highly recommend it, just as like a first time viewing experience. And if you want to see some of the coolest Spider-Man action ever put to film, if you're somebody who doesn't care as much about like the overall plot of the movie and you're just there for cool Spider-Man scenes and some good emotional moments, this movie is gonna scratch that itch for you. I don't even think it's in the top 20 worst superhero movies ever made, but it is a bit of a disappointment. And if you're looking for something a little bit deeper and more impactful and, you know, more consistent throughout the movie, this isn't the one for you. But I still recommend giving it a rewatch, just to see if your opinions have changed on it at all, especially if you're somebody who has hated this movie for a long time. There was a time where it's funny. I first saw this movie, like I said, when I was 14. I remember my grandma took me to the theater to see this one. And I have this thing where when I first see Spider-Man movies, it doesn't matter which one it is. It's like my favorite when I first get out of the theater. And then it takes me a little bit of time to get my thoughts collected on it. And then this one for a while I hated, and like in my mind was like such a horrible movie. And then I've grown on it again, like it's grown on me, I should say, as time has gone on, to where I'm able to have a more nuanced opinion about it. So if you guys have felt, you know, overwhelmingly negative about this movie in the past, but it's been a while since the last time you saw it, I recommend giving it another try just to see what your feelings are on it. And please feel free to let me know about those thoughts in the comments down below. If you guys have any different thoughts than I do, if this is your least favorite superhero movie of all time, or if you think I'm overly harsh on it and you think that this is the best Spider-Man movie, your favorite superhero movie, let me know. I'm sure that there are people out there who think that. So if this is, you know, if there's something I'm missing, please feel free to reach out and tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. All right, folks. Well, that is our last Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie. That was a lot quicker. There's only 2 of those. So next up, we're going to have the longest stretch of any actor to ever play the character with the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. For the next video, I am going to do just a little brief mini review of Captain America Civil War. Not the movie as a whole, but just the Spider-Man sections of that movie so that it leads into Homecoming. So the next video will be kind of like a double review or a review and a quarter, just so I can talk about the introduction of this character and then how he's portrayed in Spider-Man Homecoming. So you get a little bit of a 2-for-1 in the next one. I'm not sure if I'll do the same thing with Infinity War or Endgame, mainly because those movies are a lot more widely focused on like everybody, and Spider-Man doesn't get as many moments in those. But I did want to do his section from Civil War just because it was the introduction to this character. So be looking forward to that. If you want to stay up to date on when I am uploading or just new news from the channel, or if you want to get in contact with me to let me know what you'd like to see me review next after this series is done, feel free to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. Pretty much, if you can think of it, I'm on it. And those links are going to be down in the description below. But with that being said, my name is Blaine, and you just watched Blaine's World of Reviews. I'll see you next time.